Otsukimi here. Who else would it be? This is Observations with Otsu. This is also Tuesday, not Monday, as I typically record these on Mondays. So I hope you've had a good week. My family has been sick. There is a good chance that my wife has had COVID and she's seems to be reacting very similarly to those symptoms. So we've been just kind of attending to it. Um, no big deal for the moment, and so that's caused me to kind of delay some of my videos. As you guys know, I have a special needs son. I take care of him when she is not able to. So, I appreciate my family very much, and for her to take care of him, so I can do these videos. So, that being said, you're here for the video, of course. Observations with Otsu does the weekly updates for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. We will be doing Dogecoin for the time being. We will do it for today, and we'll see how this goes week by week. If we have time, which I may not for this week, we'll maybe I can kind of glance over some coins and see what they got going on. But my goal has always been to kind of only do the basics for observations with Otsu and do altcoin perspectives or later in the week. I will be doing a meme coin video um sometime later this week. I'm going to try to get that done and recorded today. The problem is I tried to actually do this Friday and I got delayed. And so meme coins aren't really doing as good anymore. But I did want to focus on them because that was kind of the point, is I thought that meme coins would be kind of fading for a little bit. Anyway, I'll reserve that for the preliminaries and maybe the updates later on in this video. And we also have other things going on as well. Knowhere Premium to kind of talk to you about because we still have that discount rolling on, and many other things. So let's just get right started and we'll get into the preliminaries. So, first things first, two things I want to mention. Both of these are, things that I talk about every week, but also things that are a way to support me um, while giving you the content that I'm able to give you. So that includes everything. That includes my YouTube, that includes my Discord, X, Twitter, whatever it's called now, and really everything. So I've also, for X, for example, I'm starting to do more long form content. That's going to be roughly about once per day. I'm also going to be doing articles as well. Anyway, I do a lot across the board. And it's something that I don't have to do across the board. I enjoy doing it. I've gotten good feedback over the years doing it, and I keep going back and forth with this because people want me to share my knowledge, but at the same time, I don't always have time to share 20, 30, 40 hours worth with my own time. So this kind of helps us, go into the middle. Knowhere is the name of my Discord. It's a free Discord. Anybody can join. I'll have a link in the description. Anybody can join. No questions asked. Come and go as you leave, or come and go as you want. No problems. Okay. And the free version of that allows me to do things like request videos once a week. We tend to just have discussions throughout the week. You can ask me questions. I have market updates for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Dogecoin Sunday through Thursdays, which usually is about 10 minutes long every single day. So you get about 50 minutes of video content. If you are not able to watch video content, I also have a transcript as well to accompany that. And then I usually add some more things for charts, things like that. In addition to that, if you do want to support me, right now it's only $20 a month. It's going to be increasing here pretty soon, but it's Knowhere Premium. That's what I got here on the screen. Knowhere Premium allows a lot of other things, but three main things you can see right here. So first things first is the trading portfolio. Now, I'll shift to the Discord uh, screenshot here in a second. But the trading portfolio is something that I've wanted to do for some time. It's one of my more frequent things that I've been asked about. And basically, it is a real portfolio with real money that I have that shows you live by live or play by plays or whatever you want to call that trades that I create the positions, I share these positions, I share the entry, my stop loss, my take profit. Everything is about as transparent as I'm allowed to be, both from a legal standpoint and from my own, anonymous standpoint. And so I'm able to do those in real time. And so what we do is Some people may think this is conservative, and my goal is to show you that this isn't, is to have a monthly goal of 25% profits on the entire portfolio per month. And so the idea is that we gain 25%, and so we started January, gain 25% January, 25% February, March, April, May, all the way to the end of the year. That ends up being about a 16x overall, about maybe 14 to 16x, depending on how you measure it with Bitcoin or dollars, and how what the price of Bitcoin will be at the end of the year. And so, I've done a lot of probabilities and statistics with that, but the goal is to make 25% per month. Now, I one of the things that I get in response to that is, well, Otsu, isn't that a little bit conservative? And I'm thinking, okay, I have no objections to say that that's conservative, but show me your portfolio. Show me that you have consistently made 25% gains every month for your portfolio for at least 12 months. And so that's the goal. And this isn't about whether you can or you can't do it. This is about me being transparent about this goal and just share that, because a lot of people that I run into, a lot of my followers especially, um, have no problems making a lot of money per month, but they can't be consistent. They can't keep that going. They can't hold that money. They can't use risk management to maintain that or to gain another edge. And so this is part of it. This is not about necessarily making money, although it is. It's about having calculated risk management for a full 12 months. How to do that in a way that helps you continue to gain gains, because I know some, I there are some portfolios out there that have no problem doing it. Usually you see one of two things. You see a portfolio that I saw one out there yesterday where there was like, my goal is to make $1 million, or I don't know, some leaderboard or something like that, and like do it completely transparent. But and they're showing you on chain, and I think that that's great. I really do. The problem is, first of all, it's not guaranteed, although my portfolio isn't either. But at the same time, you're not doing what most people are typically doing with this. Like, you're basically telling people to copy trade this. And so you're kind of in a weird situation where this particular guy has bragged about, and being on the leaderboard, I guess. And so I'm not saying that, I mean, of course that's a lofty thing, right? But the thing is, he's trying to replicate that through something that, one, they cannot guarantee to replicate, and two, even if they can, it's only unique to them. And the only way to really replicate that for yourself as a viewer, as a user, and especially as a follower of mine, is to just straight up copy trade this guy, which I think is very silly, and also does not translate, because you can literally try to copy trade someone, and you are going to get scared because you don't think like them. You have a different way of life than them, so you may not be able to be as risk adverse as them or whatever, right? And so that's the danger of that. And so it really comes off as kind of like a I'm better than you, and I'm going to show you how better I am with that approach. And so that's the first option. The second one is people make a trading group where they just spit off trades, and then they don't really tell you their performance, unless of course it's a good month. Then they'll brag about it for the rest of the decade. But if it's not a good month, they won't mention it at all, or they'll downplay it or something else. And actually, there's a third option where I've seen a lot of people do this, and I'm going to refrain from saying who it is, because there's a couple of reputable people that have done this in the past, that they create these kind of services and bots and things during bull markets, and part of my rundown for this is I've been doing this for 4 years. But I mean, I haven't been doing Knowhere Premium for 4 years, but I've been doing behind the scenes with the portfolio for 4 years. But anyway, some people will create an algorithm or create a script, and it's really basic. It's like an EMA. Like, there's a guy that, if I told you who this guy was, you would instantly recognize him. He just made a big partnership this past week. And in my opinion, duped everybody by, I mean, maybe not duped. I mean, because I guess he didn't do anything wrong, but he was charging like $350 a month for basically an EMA algorithm. That's something that you could build in 30 minutes. And so, and to his credit, it was decently successful, I guess. At the same time, it's one of those like it's not necessarily about the fact that they know what they're doing. It's just the fact that again, they know what they're doing at the right time. And it's the same with this portfolio, right? And so anybody can make money at one particular month or a short period of time. The portfolio is here to show, okay, if you think 25% per month is conservative, all right, let's go. Let's go with this through the whole year and let's see how we can do this. So anyway, the target audience for this is someone that has problems with, not necessarily problems, but views consistent profits as a benefit that they want to learn, um, want to benefit from taking profits consistently, even if we are going in an uptrend. And so that's one of the themes for the video is that, now all of a sudden everybody's concerned about taking profits and the market's going down. Well, where were you guys last week when I was saying that? But we'll continue here. So anyway, this portfolio is here for you to learn how to manage your trades, learn how to take profits, learn how to scale in or out, learn how to make trade management, learn how to do risk management, and then learn also how to set goals and disciplines. So, for example, um, February, this past 30 days, was our best trade. I mean, it's only been open for 2 months. We're currently in month 3, but we made about 60% for February. So we made just over twice our goal. Now, the thing is, we will play it a little bit conservative or risk, we'll err on the side of risk, I should say, or risk management, I should say, until that 25% goal is met. When that 25% goal is met, now we have more profits at our disposal. So now we can be higher risk with this. And so it's a win-win situation for us because if we risk more and we make more money, then our profits accelerate. That's why we jumped from 25% per month all the way up to 60. Because, all right, like I basically woke up one day and found out that our portfolio was up at like 40%. I'm like, oh, okay, we have an extra 15% at our disposal. I'm going to use that 14% to double down. And so that's how we got that extra percentage so fast. And it also, of course, helped that we had a good up market for February. Now, if things go bad, then we cut our profits and we still make our goal. See what I'm saying? So that's how that works. And so it also helps you adjust your strategy. And a lot of people don't seem to understand that. They just want to go 0 to 60 in half a second on these markets. And the trick is you actually get to make money for 30 days. That's the trick that you pull on yourself. And that's the theme of this video is that basically your confusion, you know, this is a mind trip right now. And you're gonna play tricks on yourself. But the idea is you probably made a decent amount of money in 30 days. But that's going to cause you to get adjusted to that and then we chop for a week and then you lose it all in a week because you didn't prepare for that chop. And one reason you didn't prepare for that chop is because you didn't set a goal. And so that's again, this portfolio is probably one of the best features of the premium. I know people that are charging $150 for something very similar. This is included in the $20 per month. So I'm charging probably less than what you're being charged for fees every month, guaranteed. Oh, guaranteed per month, sometimes per trade for some of you. So anyway, we'll continue here. You also get premium charts and small caps. Now the premium charts are most of the charts that I share are in actually the daily video updates, and then I share a visual follow up on those charts throughout the week as commentary. But that also can include more detailed charts as well. It's really just easier for me to do a video update every day and then share them to you and then do a follow up. So that's kind of how that works. And then small caps, we actually have two small cap channels. We have one for Solana wallet or for Solana tokens, which that's something that we started in November. That's not something new. That's not something we started because everybody else thought it was cool. We were one of the first to do this. And that's why we got in so early on a lot of these tokens. A lot of tokens that me and my followers got in on were definitely under 2 million, but some of them were under 1. And so there's that. So there's Solana wallet, the Solana tokens. The channel's called Solana wallets, or something to that effect. But we talk about Solana based tokens. That's been very successful for us. We've shared a lot of a couple 6X's, honestly. Things like that. I think we had a 12X for Nosana has been a very popular one. I think that's 12X from when we mentioned it in November. And so we got things like that. In addition to that, we also have regular small cap uh, discussions in a regular small cap channel where we discuss Ethereum and other ones as well. And that's going just as good as well. Honestly, we might be starting 2 extra portfolios related to small caps, but we'll talk about that in premium. In addition, we got the daily video updates, so that's also the same days, Sunday through Thursday, as I mentioned, but it also covers extra coins. So for example, Sunday we talked about Chainlink, Phantom, Atom, Tia, Near, RSR, and Pyth. And so what we did was we looked at those. Some of those are in the trading portfolio. Some of those are new coins, some of those are review coins, and so we tend to recycle those and go. We always talk about new coins, we always review things like that. Yesterday we talked about AVAX, CHZ, DYDX, SUI, CAS, LDO, Alice, and then we talked about Python Tia again. And so that's kind of the situation that I tell you about. Was like we typically talk about, at a minimum 5 coins a day, but typically we get around 7 to 9 per day. And so it's a lot of people find that very, very, very valuable. So anyway, that's in addition to that, we also have, other, I think it's right here. Um, other things as well, just light mentoring. That should be light mentoring. I think that was left out, but and video requests. We do private videos once every 2 weeks. We got another one coming up this week about order blocks. I'm going to share, this is something that the group likes to request. I give them a list of things I would like to cover. They give me a list of things that they would want me to cover, and then we work together to see which videos you guys would like. So by request, the video for this week is about order blocks. And so we'll do an educational trading video about order blocks. Here's kind of a sneak peek of what the trading portfolio is. I'll just look at stuff like this right here. And so, we had a TIA trade here. This was, 20, here right here, trade 28. I'm bouncing everywhere, but trade number 28. We've only done 28 trades in the past, well, really since January 10th. And so we had one, trade 27 was TIA. I had another 1% because we had a dip. And that worked out really well. I actually took profits on that, which is right here. I also took half link profits from this already because that went up before it went down. So things have been looking pretty good. And so what I want to mention right here is the current balance right here. So we just started our February goal, and so it started March 10th. Or no, we March I'm talking about. We just started our March goal on March 10th. I apologize for that. We started at 11,600, so which was 1/4 of 1 Bitcoin. Our current balance is about 28. This actually probably is a little bit higher. I might have to check. But our new goal for March is going to be 31.3 basically. And so that's the thing. We started with 11,600. We met our goal. So January I think was about 40%. I think, and of course February was higher. But that also allows us to adjust our goal as well. So we look at things like what is our new goal and our new target. So again, the goal is to get about 25% minimum per month. When we first started the portfolio on January 10th, that would have been a goal of about 168,000. I think now that's closer to like 220,000. So we're well on our way. And so it's been very interesting. Again, if this is something that you like, I know I'm rambling about this, but I think it matters because some of you guys feel like you have good elements to trade with, but you just don't know how to calculate that. Like you are good at one particular thing or the other. Like you know how to enter a trade, but you don't know how to take profit. Or you do know how to take profits, but you do it at the wrong time. Or you make a lot of money, but you don't know how to keep it. So there's certain elements in that. And so the trading portfolio is a holistic way. It's very similar to how I manage my portfolio in real life. I just use a different set of money to navigate that. So anyway, that's all helpful as well. And so that's the trading portfolio. Now I'm going to share just briefly about the Apex script. So right here, I just added my indicator. So this is the buy and sells options. And so what this basically does, if you haven't, if you've seen this, you can skip it, of course. But what this does is gives you a buy option, and so your entry would have been here at the top position. Your take profit would be right here at the lower dotted line. And then your take profit is wherever you decide it to be. It really depends on, and I let it open ended on purpose because everybody trades differently. For some of you, you guys get too scared and you want to sell here, but some of you guys hold. And for this particular case, it worked out well. But for some of you, that may be too long for you. So this is something where you can navigate this as you desire. My script will not tell you when to take profits. The only time it might mention it is when you get an opposite signal, right? So if you had this short and you got this buy signal, you would have canceled that short, of course. So and you don't have to take these trades, obviously. So that kind of works like so. And so what that does, it kind of gives you a good training wheels, and not even really training wheels because I use this. Like I built this for me, honestly, and I got a lot of requests about it, so I went ahead and just shared it, and a lot of people are interested in it. So um, that's kind of how this works. So this would have gave you a 70% run at 27R. And so I ask you, did you make more than 70%, since, January 27th? If you haven't, I would look into this script, this indicator, because it may help you. It may I'm not saying it I'm definitely not saying it'll make you money. I can't guarantee that is what I am saying. But what I want to also say is that this would help navigate trade management for you. This is a trade management tool to allow you to enter trades um, in a way that makes sense. So the buy signal here, and so it's one of these things. It gets a little choppy here in the back, and so I've done back tests on this, things like that. So anyway, just kind of a brief mention for that. I know I'm rambling on all the stuff that I offer, but it does help support me, and most importantly is like I've made these for you all because of user feedback. People wanted a script to be able to make their lives easier. People wanted a private group because it wanted to make their lives easier. Because with this script alone, this helps you set trades for you. This is an Aroon-based tool as well, which a lot of people don't do. But this helps save you time. My premium group helps save time. I probably save everybody at least, you know, maybe a couple hours a day just by letting them watch a 10-minute video. So I think that's, for $20 over money you're going to spend anyway with trading fees or a cup of coffee, um, it should be worth it, in my opinion. So anyway, that's the preliminaries. I apologize for taking a little too long on that. Let's get started in the theme of this video. All right, so the theme of this video is called confusion. This is a feature, not a bug. And so one of the reasons I mentioned that is because a lot of people are getting confused by a lot of things. They're going to be confused by the market, but I think it's more appropriate to say that the market is creating confusion for people. And the thing is, according to market psychology, this is what it's supposed to do. And so, what I will do for this theme is I'm going to go back to the old school method of what I used to do. So, I would cover the theme for a couple minutes, like so. And then during Bitcoin, I'll cover an aspect of the theme related to Bitcoin. And Ethereum, I'll relate a theme that relates to Ethereum and then Solana as well. So then you'll get a sprinkle of the theme throughout the video, in addition to getting maybe a thematic segment right here. But the basic theme with the confusion is that we need to understand that we are in a new territory of the market. So Bitcoin is at a new price high. It's never been this high except for maybe like yesterday. And so that allows for a new dynamic. The narrative has shifted with crypto. ETFs are a thing. They're going to continue to be a thing. It's going to continue to get discussed. Um, as I've already said, Bitcoin has made new highs. Ethereum is getting super, super close to new highs. And we're nowhere near the levels that we were, 2 years ago. So Bitcoin again was as low as, 16, I think upper 15,000s. Ethereum was basically like 800. Solana was like, I think 8 or something like that. I don't remember exactly when it was. But yeah, it was at 8. And so a lot of things change. And I I do tend to kind of be a little upfront about that because I'm like, where were you? Like when I bought right here, like literally somewhere within this segment right here before we had this pump, because this was the FOMC pump fake, and I'll talk about that. Believe me, we'll be talking about FOMC here in a second. But nobody was interested to buy here. I think technically people were based off the volume profiles, but relative to like crypto Twitter, for example, or just general markets, retail especially, nobody was interested. And now that we've hit 72, everybody's like, okay, let's buy this. This looks great. It's just like people set up here back in the 60,000 range. I can't believe I'm saying like that was a range previously because now we have a range in the sevens. People are like, "Oh, I can't wait for this. I should have bought at 20,000." When you get your chance to buy at 20,000, you're like, "No way, I'm not going to buy this crap." And then it goes back up, and now you say, "Hey, I wish I would have bought it again." And so that is on you if you had that mentality and you didn't succeed in doing so. At the same time, you need to learn your lesson. You need to focus on that and realize when opportunity arises, opportunity will always come with risk. That's the thing that nobody seems to understand. Opportunity reward will come with opportunity risk, or, you know, however you want to say that. And so whenever you're putting money into the market, you always have a risk of losing that money in its entirety. I don't care if you're buying stock. I don't care if you're buying something that you think is safe. I don't care if you're putting money in the bank for a high yield 1.55 savings account. You still have a risk to lose it all. People don't realize that um, there's only an illusion of safety with things like banks, and of course the probability is very low, but it's never zero. It's never zero, and so that's the thing that people need to understand. And so yes, Bitcoin relative to that is a very high risk asset, and so but you also got to understand too. I come from a mentality where everything is a risk. Life in general is a risk. Me sleeping until 1 o'clock in the afternoon is a risk for my day. But also waking up early could also be a risk as well. It just depends how you want to view that. Okay, every time I get on the road and drive, that's a risk. But every time I don't, that's also a risk for ABC or whatever. If I want to learn something, the risk is my time, my energy, my money, whatever I want to do to invest in that, whether mentally or physically. But if I don't learn that, then I also have, my risk is, well, maybe I don't get the career that I wanted. For example, I'm just using this example, right? So that's kind of what that's looking like. Now, this goes to the confusion aspect, is because now we're in a new territory of the market. Your people are confused. Like, should I buy here? It's weird because people want to buy here more than ever, but at the same time, people also want to sell more than ever now as well. It's like, oh, I should take profits on these things, or I should ride this to a million, $1 million, or especially with the meme coins. It's like meme coins had went up significantly, and then to the point where it's like, oh, I'm never selling, and then it went down. So it's like predictable. And so that's what I'm talking about this confusion. The market is designed to confuse you. So if we go to WIF, for example, um, a lot of people were looking at this, you know, once we got up to the top, it's just like, well, I'm never selling. This is life changing money. I'm never going to sell because I'm going to keep my life changing. But and I won't show it to you, but we actually had a sell signal on my script up here in one of these two candles. And so this is predictable. This is predictable. And that's how it works. I'm not saying that because I know better or I don't know better. I'm saying that because that's how market psychology works. When you get to the point where you feel like you should never sell, that's the time that you should probably sell everything or at least something, or understand where the market is going. And so now we're kind of in this zone. And again, I'll share this theme by theme with each coin. But I want to talk a little bit about the CPI today and the FOMC meetings that take place and their own Powell stuff, is because out of the blue, CPI became a thing yesterday. Okay. Nobody cared about it. Nobody cared about that 48 hours ago. Nobody. And it became the biggest topic for about 15 minutes on CT, and it was a non-event. It was even higher than it was expected, and so a lot of people were like, "Well, the market's going to go down." Like, there's even some prominent traders that are saying that, and that's good and well. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm really not, because it's okay to get things right or wrong or whatever, and this person's much more successful than I can ever be, so I can't I can't criticize that. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're wrong as long as you make more in the end, right? It's not about being right or wrong. It's about making money. So anyway, back to this. The thing is, it was never a thing until, like, who was thinking about CPI the past 4 months? Nobody. Nobody. So why are we thinking about it now? Because the market is overextended. Because the market is also in a price discovery point where people are getting scared. People don't have a reason for why this is happening, so they want to create a why for why this is happening. And they're doing that in the form of the CPI or the SPX. Okay, I have seen an influx of people looking at the stock market for crypto. Not sure why. It didn't serve you at all in 2021 or 2022. A lot of people think that it did. It maybe served like 5 people, and they profited well off that. But for most people, all it did was cause you headache. It caused you confusion, hence the theme of the video. Cause you an extra layer of things to look at that makes no set of differences. You may think that that's correlated, and there's decent evidence to say that it is correlated. The problem is people use that correlation as a response mechanism. They don't use it because the market's actually telling them that. They look at it as like, well, the market's doing this, and then the SPX is also doing this, so that must mean it's together. No, it's not. Just because two cars go down the same road at the same time does not mean they're correlated, does not mean that they are driving together. When I get on the road, whatever car I'm around is just because we're momentarily together. It doesn't mean that we're together because of each other on the road. Doesn't mean that those cars are correlated. Doesn't mean that they're going to get off at my exit, although sometimes they do. And so that's the thing. Just because you get on a road and you get on the road for 15 minutes and the car behind you, follows you off the exit, it doesn't mean that they're following you. It's like, oh, they're following me. Oh my gosh. That may be true, but most often that's not true. And so that's kind of what I'm saying right here. It's just because just and it's funny because it's almost always one directional, right? It's almost always like, well, how is the S&P 500 affecting Bitcoin or affecting crypto? It's never the other way around, because you are viewing this from a crypto perspective and you're trying to look for the S&P 500 for answers. And I'm telling you, it does more detrimental damage to you than anything else. And again, nobody cared about that until we started approaching 65,000 and 68,000. Okay, I've seen 10 times more S&P 500 crypto posts than I have since last week, and really any week for the past 4 months. And that's concerning to me. First of all, I don't care. It's not concerning that I care about that. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. I can tell you, I've never I've never looked at the S&P 500 to trade crypto. I mean, I've tried to look at it to see what you guys are talking about, but and after 7 years, I got nothing. I got nothing after 7 years. But one of the reasons why is because I have an effective strategy that doesn't rely on that. And I've mentioned this several times in the past month that you should be making things easier on you, and looking at other markets is just going to make things more confusing. And the thing is, if you just learn simple TA, you don't even have to look at anything else. Why are you making it harder on yourself? I don't understand. People will do anything except for just look at TA and look at basic level things. So for example, today people thought Bitcoin was going to crash because the inflation was a little bit too high. Well, guess what? It hasn't crashed. We're 2 hours, 3 hours after this and hasn't done nothing. We have a little bit of a red day, and that's expected in my opinion. And so there's two things. First of all, it's expected. We have a divergence here at the highs. You mean to tell me that you care more about a CPI thing than a divergence at the highs? What is wrong with you? I'm sorry, but there comes a breaking point with this, because a bearish divergence at the highs is one of the biggest tells that the market could come down. But you're going to look at a CPI that's barely, you know, bearish, I should say, and you're using that as the reason why the market's going down. I can guarantee you that it's not. That's not why markets are going down. You know, if the market and so the second thing is, if the market goes down during that time, that does not mean, and I've mentioned this before, and this is one of these little technicals that you really need to listen to understand it, is that if the market goes down during a bearish news event, it does not mean it went down because of the news event. It went down during that news event because the market allowed it to happen. If the market is resilient, it will go through bad news. We've learned this from Bitcoin itself from the past year, is that the market is resilient. The market did not care about this flush. The market did not care about what was it? I think it was right here where where that stupid VC or whatever venture fund that was, where they talked about the ETFs not getting approved. You know, we went through the Binance thing with the U.S. government. Okay, so we've been through a lot of things. So why hasn't the market dumped? It's because those things didn't matter in retrospect to the market conditions. That's why. Did they cause temporary dips? Some of them, yes. But overall, it had no effect. And so that's what I'm talking about. Why, when you have big events like that, and then you focus on little events like the CPI, it was like over, like, it wasn't even over by 1%. And like people are just reacting to this like it's some new thing. The Jerome Powell meetings in 2021 did nothing but get you chopped out, nothing but got you sidelined. So many people, and so many of you possibly, got sidelined because Wall Street told you so, or the government told you to. Okay, I was just thinking about this yesterday, and I think I maybe posted a tweet about this. Like, I got in Bitcoin before it was cool. Like when it was starting to become like cool with the nerds. So like 4,000. And now, at that time, I have mentors, right? I've got three mentors, but I've had mentors my whole life. And at the time, I had my mentors telling me, "Don't buy this. This is not a good idea." I got new mentors, of course. But since then, but I've had many people telling me that this is a scam, that Bitcoin is a scam, that I'm doing something illegal, that I'm doing something immoral, that it's a gateway to drugs or whatever. And I had a lot of criticism. I had lots of strong criticism by people that were very strong into Wall Street, especially one guy that was one of my mentors is so I had two mentors. One guy who's closer to my age told me, "Okay, this isn't a good financial idea. You're gonna lose a lot of money." Um, and so he mentioned that. So he's kind of playing it safe. But another guy basically said, "Hey, Bitcoin's a scam." And this guy was also a financial analyst, and he does retirement portfolios. And he's like, "Bitcoin's a scam. You're gonna lose all your money. Blah blah blah. You shouldn't be doing that. Blah blah blah." Well, who's laughing now? Because that was when Bitcoin was at like 4,000, 6,000, and now we're at 71, almost 72. We were at 72. So, and the thing is that I don't even care about that. The thing is now, people, like I've had a lot of boomers come to me in the past 2 years saying, or really 3 years, like, "Hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin. How do I do it? I want to put it in my portfolio for my retirement. How do I do it?" And now they can with the ETFs. And I knew all this was coming. And now I'm supposed to just accept people for how they treated me. And then now everything's okay. Eh, I mean, I will, but I'm not going to forget the time when people doubted me and now they're asking me for advice. So that's also part of the confusion that I'm talking about is like, these people are only buying in because it's cool now. They're not buying in because they thought about Bitcoin in the way that we did. They thought about it because now they can add to their portfolio. It's the new thing, which isn't a new thing for me. And so that's kind of how that works. So anyway, that's again to reiterate, and I'll mention the details in the with the theme with the coins. But the theme here is like we're in a new situation with the markets. You're going to lead to new confusion. So don't try to trick yourself, especially on purpose. Try to just navigate the markets. Realize that we can go up on just in a way that doesn't make sense sometimes, and then we could should always anticipate a drop down here. And I've mentioned this before. This is not the best R&R conditions right now. The best R&R was a year and a half ago, or even 6 months ago. Honestly, the market conditions are not as. I mean, they're more trendy and they're more liquid, but it's less risk to reward. So just keep that in mind. But at the same time, that's going to push your limits to how you find this market logical. It's going to border illogic or an illogical point of view, and that's going to try to cause you to find reasons to make this logical, which could be going to the news, going to wherever. And I'm telling you, it's going to cause you more problems than you think. It's going to cause you to get stopped out. And the point is, you want to try to hold your money. I'm a big fan of using spot right now or very low leverage like 2x, 3x, um, and just chilling. Some of you guys are trading too much. You saw in my portfolio earlier in this video, I've only made 28 trades in the past 65 days. So we're averaging like one every 2.5 days, roughly. Probably not even that. Probably one every almost somewhere between one every 2 to 3 days. And there's a reason for that. First of all, I trade less because it helps me keep in the zone. The less that I trade, the more I can understand how weighty those trades are going to be. But also, too, I circumnavigate that by adding more risk to those trades. So that's what you didn't see. I've only made 28 trades. but the average risk is about 4%, 3 to 4%. Some of them are as high as 7. And so I've gotten a lot of, if I have a high probability of potential success, I'll increase the risk to manage that. And so that's how I do it. I don't look at 100 trades. There's a guy that I respect very highly that said he had 100 bags yesterday. And I'm like, it's not me. It's not me. And I respect that, but it's just not me. Because what's the risk on that? And let's say 1% risk for each of those. Like, if it's 1%, now you're risking your entire portfolio 100%. So it's probably not 100%. It's probably like half that. So that doesn't make sense to me because I'd rather just find 3 trades that have 5% risk each. So it's a 15%, so my risk is lower. And if the high probability is to go higher, then I actually make more money than they do. And I'm actually using less risk to do it. So anyway, the point is, don't confuse yourself. The gravitation to confusion is a natural part of this process in the market. And so try to refrain from doing that as much as possible. So we'll get into the video for the charts. So for Bitcoin, I'm going to talk about um, more confusion in relation to the S&P 500 and the CPI. Maybe I'll kind of forego that since I talked about this in the theme. But for Ethereum, I'm going to talk about altcoin confusion. And then for Solana, I'm going to talk about Solana tokens and like positive confusion because I think there's negative confusion and positive confusion. And then we'll talk about Dogecoin if we have time. So anyway, let's get to the charts. All right, so let's go to Bitcoin first, and we're going to cover the weekly and kind of go from there. So first things first, I'm going to get rid of this and get rid of this as well. All right, so we got another bullish candle. So that's kind of been how it's been going. We pushed up to the upper pocket where we technically got an all-time high at that point. We actually came back down. We got the new all-time high this week. And technically this week still hasn't closed yet. So there is a chance that we could come back down and not hold that on the weekly. And so I think, that's a discussion for next week, whether that will or that won't. But we actually closed basically right at the top of this. So the good news is that was still the highest closing candle that we've ever had. And so that's good. That is bullish. We should maintain that bullish mentality, right? On the flip side, we did close underneath that. And so that is something that we need to look forward to for this week. Now, if we close this week above the zone, above the new high territory, then we can start talking about other targets to the upside and what have you. Now, as far as the daily goes, it's a little bit different story. We'll get into that in a second because we did breach the daily. And I still think this is a long option across the board. And so we have that going on. Now, as far as Aroon goes, we're in a full bull trend. We have the Aroon bearish line coming down. This red line is the halving. RSI, no diversions, nothing like that. Looking pretty healthy. It's at 89, so it's a little high. And that's something that I do want to stress is that, a lot of people make fun of me for this or just make fun of RSI people in general. But if you look at this, we very rarely go above this 89 marker. In fact, on Coinbase on the weekly, we've only done so pretty much just one time. And so that is a cause of concern. It's not just that RSI levels do not mean that we are going to stop at a certain price, and a lot of people get that confused. I have a divergence video that I'm looking forward to doing that discusses that it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go up a certain price or we're going to stop there or what have you. It just means that the relative strength is going to change. And so we've only had that really once on the weekly. So let's go ahead and I'm going to actually look at the all-time history index and kind of look at this from the similar standpoint. And I think I've already looked at this before. And so we've had this a few times, pre 2015, but basically since 2015 really, but 17 especially, we've only had one push to the upside, and that was pretty much right here. So we had kind of a parabolic run up to like 37, 38,000. This was after COVID, and it's honestly what we're getting now a little bit. And so I would not be surprised if we do something very similar And so that RSI level was at about 94%. Very possible that we could go ahead and do that, and then we kind of retrace just a little bit, yeah, and then come back down. So that, a lot of people kind of disagree at where we're at in the markets. I do think that we're kind of like right here, honestly. I do think that we're probably about 40% of the way through this cycle already, as far as um, the maximum potential that we have. I'm not saying that that's the price, but I'm not saying that we have another 60% to go. That would be great. But as far as the momentum, I think we're pretty much right here. And so I really just look at this whole structure right here as the run. This structure is part of the run, of course, and that is part of the top, but that's also a deviated top. So it has a little bit of special rules for this particular case. And so we could get that, we may not, but I'm just analyzing what I've seen before. Historically speaking, it is rare that we stay. It is very rare that we stay above 90 on the RSI on the weekly. And so I can kind of look at some, date ranges right here from here to here. So about 60 days. And so that looks like that's the biggest one. And so I think I think within 2 months or less, we could probably see kind of a change in the RSI conditions. Now, if we look at this, once we went below this zone, actually we dropped by the time that we got to that, I believe. And that was so long ago anyway. But no, actually we didn't. So the if we come back below the zone, that could be something critical that we look at. So just keep that in mind over. I think that's worth looking at because I've mentioned this for a couple weeks now that I think again the run is still looking good, but I do think the R&R is not really that healthy right now. And you can see we're already going down about 1.5 per, almost for right now. And so this is all normal to me because the RSI is extended and there are divergences on time frames, and we'll get into that. There's one on currently on the daily. And so that lends itself to realize that we need to look at the option that things will go down. And that's kind of what I mentioned with the confusion aspect with the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. A lot of people, and it blows my mind. Like I've seen more again, I've seen more people looking at the S&P and Nasdaq in the past 2 days than I have in the past 4 months. And saying that this is the reason it's going to go down. No, it's not the reason it's going to go down. So you're telling me that the fact like we're overextended, but that's not the reason? You know, the thing is that people got duped into believing that we're going to continue to run forever just because we broke all-time high. And so that's what I said earlier in the theme. Nothing has really changed between 69,000 and 71,000. But what has changed is your mentality on the markets is allowing you to be confused in the markets. And instead of trying to navigate that confusion, you're trying to find answers in places that you did not care about getting answers from when the markets were going fine. And so now that the markets are not as fine, or they are at least uneasy for you while they're still doing good, you are trying to find reasons for why they're not doing good. And it's just as simple as markets go down. Markets go up, markets go down. Okay, and that's kind of what I say. You can look at this from a chart perspective. I can show you this just from the RSI alone on the weekly, that the upside target right now is limited for the next 90 days, in my opinion. Okay, in my technical opinion on this. And so, to me, that means that you should be monitoring your positions at a minimum, that you should be taking profits if you feel like you're uncomfortable or you feel like you need to. Um, that you should be managing your trades probably better than what you are because you're trying to find answers. The real reason is you're trying to find answers elsewhere to make you probably feel better. And so you don't have to do that. A lot of people struggle in life by trying to find excuses for why something happens, and they'll blame everything but themselves. They'll blame everything but something that they can control. And so again, I'm not getting on to anybody. I shouldn't be saying you per se, but what I am saying is that the markets are giving us good evidence to translate this as, hey, we could have some downside. I mentioned in Discord yesterday that we would touch 70,000, and we did today. And so that's kind of what I was looking at. So, and I'll look at that more in the daily. But as far as the S&P CPI correlation, no, I absolutely do not believe the CPI is correlated to this. And I guarantee you're going to get some guy that thinks the thing is, a lot of people that try to correlate it feel like they're so smart and they act smart. And the thing is, if you don't know what you are looking at either, you interpret them as being smart. But that's not necessarily the case. What they're really doing is like they're looking at A, they're looking at B, and they're like, well, it happened on the same day, so I guess they're together. And somebody else is like, oh wow, that's so smart, when it's really not the case. Again, the market will be resilient in bad news if the market is resilient. Okay, I could take a lot of time. I won't do it because it'd take too much of my time. But I could look at the markets and show you all the bad news that we've had the past year and how it pretty much did nothing. Okay, and to say that the CPI that barely went over expectations is causing this drop is insane to me. It's just insane to me. So anyway, that's kind of enough about the theme of that for Bitcoin. We'll do other themes in the rest of the coins. But as far as Bitcoin goes, we have limited upside left, in my opinion, on the weekly. Now that could, again, that could take 2 months, that could take 3 months. Look at about a 90-day timestamp, in my opinion, just for a dip, I think. And so I think it's overdue. Do I think it's going to happen? I think it's a different story. But one thing I do want to look at, and this is the weekly I want to show you, but we have two different things here. First of all, we have this upper area, kind of liquidity. If I include this deviation, this is the liquidity zone. So we want Bitcoin to hold this zone. Otherwise, we get a major deviation. If we break below 60,000, we're going to go back to 45. And so that is very concerning to me. A lot of people are not ready to hear that. A lot of people are not prepared for that. And let's just see how significant this would be. I mean, if you go to the top, that would be a 35% drop. So that qualifies for that 30% drop that people are looking for, that people are just not ready to hear. You are not prepared for that drop. Okay, and that's one thing that I was cautious about. When we had a consolidation like this and a push up, we had a breaker here. And so this is that breaker. And so that's a concern. We're probably going to retest this zone if we fail back to below 60,000. We don't want to do this at all. But it is possible. And again, that might take 3 months to play out. You just need to be prepared for that. And so that'll also give a good reload opportunity, but most people will not add on to that. I guarantee it, because that's just kind of how it is. Also, you do have this retest of the mid zone. That's another reason why I like that. And this is just a good structure. This top of the mid, or of this order block, is a good structure that I think that we could retest. There is a chance that we could stop here at 46.8. Now, again, that's only if it goes below. See, a lot of you guys might be interested to hearing this now that the market's going down. And so it's, your confusion and your market perception is changing. I can tell. So, but as far as this goes, you also have another zone. Let me just kind of redo this here. And that is this zone. And so this is your higher liquidity area. Now, this is one where, again, on the weekly, we did not break above this zone. We closed below it. So we could close below this zone, and this is not a deviation. And so we can really put these two together. So this wouldn't be as bearish if we close below. The first example would be much more bearish than this one, but we also don't want to close below this either. But we're going to have a bear candle at some point, right? And so there's a few different options here. We could just navigate this completely. In fact, we could probably just do a fib block here. And so now your zone is like 64.3. I think there's a chance that we could come back to 64.3, as low as 64.3, and still be okay. And I think that would be healthy as well. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to close below 60. But this is kind of what I'm seeing so far. Other than that, not much else. I think Bitcoin is still relatively healthy here. I don't see why we are panicking after one red day. That's pretty much expected anyway. And so that's kind of That's kind of how I see it. Now let's go ahead and go to, I guess I'll just keep that. Let's go to the daily on here. So the daily is a little interesting to me because so for the Aaron, for example, we're in a full trend. So that means the bulls are in full trend. The bears are pretty much hibernating at the lows here. RSI is at 70, which is fine, but we have a divergence. In fact, we've kind of had a series of divergences here, kind of like an angled divergence is what I would call it, and that is concerning to me. I We might have a liquidity sell. I don't know. I'd have to check. But overall, this is a little bit concerning, and this is one reason why we are getting these drop downs. It's drop downs happen first of all. Like you should never have to have an excuse for like a 1% down move. It happens. It always happens. That's just how supply and demand works. I don't know why we need to make excuses for these things. And we don't need to make excuses for things to go up either. It just happens, right? And so, but this divergence helps us look at this because there's another layer here. Divergence for the RSI is telling us that the relative strength is weaker according to the run up. And yes, that doesn't mean that we're going to go down. Doesn't mean that we're going to go up either. We do need to look at this from a different angle. So as far as RSI divergences go, they play if we break below the top of this. So like your first point was right here at 86, which would be right here at the top at about 68,400. So if we go back to 68,400 and we break below that, then the divergence plays into effect, and then you can scale out or scale in depending on how you want to approach this. And so that's kind of what I look at for that. Now, as far as the daily, we had a big bullish candle yesterday. This was the weekly open candle. And so now, we closed at about 72,000 even. And so we're still right here. And I mentioned that we would probably retest the zone. And actually, I think right here at about 69.7 was where I was looking at. And so this is looking pretty fine to me. This is a classic bullish retest to me. And so I don't see a reason why to panic over just a couple of percentile. Now the alts are going to suffer a little bit more, and that's going to be by design because Bitcoin's still in charge here. Okay, and that's one reason why you should take profits on some of your coins. Win token is down 16%, and it's one of these things where the meme coins I've mentioned will drop the hardest. Okay, we had a pump up, fake out, now we're down. Okay, these will pump the hardest, but they'll also dump the hardest as well. So just keep that in mind, because it's just going to happen. Dogecoin's down 8%, and a bunch of chicken scratch on here. So there's a reason for that. There's a reason why Dogecoin's down 8%, Win is down like 16%, and Solana's only down like 1 or barely 1. See what I'm saying? And so that lends perspective on that. And we might do some price action here in a second since it's kind of being a little back and forth lately. So anyway, as far as this goes, we're still above the zone. As long as we stay above 69, I think we're fine. I think we're fine. And so again, that divergence could play out. We did have a hood and bull div right here, so we could get a chop scenario. What I don't think people are ready to hear is that we could also chop for like a month. And so we're in kind of a weird zone with this. But I think those are the options. I think, again, as long as we hold this range, I think we can come down to about 69,000 even and still be okay. Or even 68.5. But I think, as long as we hold above this blue zone, I think we're completely okay. I'm going to kind of look at the 1 hour here just to kind of analyze what's going on, because we're down about 2.5% right now. And so it's totally fine. Again, it's something normal to me. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this too. But you had kind of a run up here, almost kind of a reaccumulation thing. Didn't quite work out the way that you would expect it to go. But you have this zone right here. And so this is what I'm looking at. You had to push up above this high here. Rounded top, kind of went through. And so this should retest. This was a breaker. And so this is why this should retest this area. When you get a breaker, that's a sign that the demand went too high too fast and it just needs to retest the supply. That's all it is. That's just how you need to view that. There's a reason why I can map these out. It's because it is effective. And so as long as we hold this 69,800, no problems at all. RSI is relatively low from where we're at, so I could see a bounce coming up pretty soon. And so we'll just see how that goes. No reason to panic, in my opinion. So again, so that's pretty much the rules for that. let's go ahead and go to Ethereum. Ethereum's down about -3, but we're going to go into that and look at the altcoin confusion in addition to that. All right, let's go to Ethereum on the weekly now. Last weekly candle, pretty sizable. One of the more sizable ones that we've had. I mean, we've had the past three of the past six have been pretty sizable, to be honest with you. But we are still below the zone. So unlike Bitcoin, where Bitcoin made a new high, Ethereum is still below. And now I'll mention the price action here in a second. On the Aroon, full trend on this, drop down on this. So again, we're looking at more of a trend consolidation. And so that's not really a true consolidation like it would be. Both of these would have to go down for a true consolidation. This is a trend-based move for the bulls, but a consolidation for the bears, which is not a good sign for bears. And so that's one reason, despite the fact that Ethereum is down more than Bitcoin right now, I do think the upside has more potential in the next 3 months for Ethereum. And so you guys may have seen on one of my tweets that I converted half of my Bitcoin that I have, saved up for the past 2 to 3 years into Ethereum because I think the potential is going to be higher to that, because I think there's a good chance that we'll get to see 10,000 Ethereum, but I think, relative to that, that would almost be like 200,000 for Bitcoin. I think that that's much less likely, and even if it is, I'm not going to lose that much on that. So, and so that's kind of where I see that. Now, RSI going above the oversold, in my opinion. So, oversold for me is 80. It's not 70, as most people like to believe. I like the 80 marker personally. But as far as this goes, everything else is looking pretty healthy. I think Ethereum is looking pretty good relatively on the weekly, even more so than Bitcoin, to be honest with you. And again, that leads to that confusion, not just with Bitcoin, but with altcoins. Is so, you know, Bitcoin is leading the charge, and so there's some confusion by that because, again, when we reach all-time highs, people think in a range-bound thing, right? Um, we spend more time below all-time highs than we do above all-time highs, right? And so your perspective is, well, we've been under 69,000 or 68,000 for 2 3 years now, so it's like I got to think relative to that, and now that I can't, I have limited experience in doing that, so now I've got to find ways to, you know, to make up for that lack of experience. But that doesn't have to be the case. That's where trend price action comes much more into play. And Ethereum also helps with that. Now, as far as part of the confusion with the Ethereum for this theme, it's really the result of like the altcoins. So you can see right here is that on the side panel here, altcoins are just falling apart right now. And that's one thing that it's like, well, now I have to have a reason for the altcoins going up or down, and things like that. But you don't necessarily have to. You just need to understand that Bitcoin is in charge of the market. It always has been. That's probably not going to ever change. And in fact, a lot of people thought Ethereum would take over Bitcoin, but I almost wonder if Solana might be taking over Ethereum in some sense. I don't think it will per se. I think Ethereum will probably stay number two for the top non-stable coin. But Solana really um, has been resilient, and a lot of people compared it to FTX. I think that was why, but it kind of showed a lot of people off, like, hey, this ecosystem is doing pretty good relative to Ethereum. And so, and the thing is, it doesn't have to be Bitcoin versus Ethereum or Ethereum versus Solana. Like all three can exist, and so I don't see a reason why we need to argue about that. But that does lead to confusion because it's like, well, like a lot of people, a lot of Ethereum people that started out like making fun of Bitcoin maxis, and now they've become ETH maxis, and now there's all these maxi things, and I don't really care about that, right? Um, but the thing is, the confusion will happen with altcoins is because like now I gotta find another altcoin to believe in. You ain't gotta do any of that stuff for altcoins. But the market's going down. You gotta find a reason for all these altcoins going down. You had no problem thinking like last week. No, like every single person. I should have just saved all these tweets of people just saying like, "Don't take profits. You're missing out on nine." Like I literally argue with a guy that's like, "You're gonna fail at making nine figures because you're a screw up." Basically, I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" Like, and those are the kind of people in markets like today where they're like, "Oh, you're responsible for yourself. I didn't tell you to do anything." And Yeah, I mean technically that's true, but also you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing, man. And so that's the thing. Those are the people that will end up saying those are the people that will leave you drowning and they will throw a brick at you while you are drowning. Okay? they will take the life rafts, they'll deflate them, and then they'll take off without you because they don't really care about you. They're just making engagement bait or whatever it might be. And so I'll always err on the side of caution with taking profits. Okay, I haven't made a lot as much as other people. Absolutely true. Have I lost as much as other people? No, absolutely not. Okay, there's a reason I've been staying in this game for as long as I have been. And so anyway, you just need to apply risk management properly. That's a very reasonable thing to do. That's a very smart thing, no matter what you're doing in your life. So, as far as this goes for the weekly, again, we have this liquidity structure I was looking at. You can look at two ways. This is the block structure. This is the wick structure. And so either one, I think the block structure is more relevant to current price. Um, so we're just below this zone. So this is the tip right here on this. So we broke below 4,000. That was a concern of mine. And so we need to hold 4,000 here. There is a chance that we could reject here and come back down. If we do, we're looking at about 3,500 on the weekly. 3,520 is more appropriate to that. But we could see that weekly drop down on that. Now, if you want to kind of calculate this structure here, you could do like a fib based structure. We need to maintain 42.85, basically 43. But it's one of these things where it needs to happen. And again, we are at resistance. I'm not trying to be bearish here by any means because the chart looks really good. It looks better than Bitcoin in my opinion. But you also need to realize we are still at resistance. We have no confirmation that we're going to continue higher. I would rather this reclaim the level and be much more confident in heading to 46. And so we'll see where that goes. Um, and that's pretty much it for the weekly. Despite the fact that I think Ethereum looks better, it's a lot easier to navigate through. Now, daily. Now, this is something where I think this is easier to explain on the 12 hour, but it does show up on the daily, is that we do have a bullish channel here. And so, at least we did yesterday. Let me see how this works. And so we actually are currently breaking the channel on the 12 hour. This needs to reclaim. I think it probably will. Let's go ahead and go back to the daily. And so you can see it's kind of already probably more above the zone. I guess this is probably more appropriate here. And so this needs to reclaim above this zone. I think it'll probably do it. This might qualify as it is anyway, but I would say it probably needs to qualify above 30, 39, 30 first. And so we'll see how that goes. If this breaks down, then we're probably coming back down to 36.40. I think that's the next logical point here with this overthrow that we had. And then also to make this insult to injury, this would also make us lose the $4,000 level, which we've technically already lost, but we have not confirmed yet. And so that is that resistance liquidity zone that I'm talking about. You don't want to go into a zone and then lose that zone. That's never good. Okay? You never want to go from zone to zone and then deviate from that zone because that doesn't look very good. Okay? RSI is all over the place. Could be divergent in nature, but this is really complex, right? We do have a hidden bull structure here. So what we could do, I'm almost banking on Bitcoin and Ethereum getting a drop down to their next respective levels downward and then chopping for the next month. That was kind of my thesis like a month ago and even really upwards to 2 weeks ago or even early last week, to be honest with you. And I kind of dismissed that, but I'm almost starting to come back to that because maybe I was just a little bit early to that point of view. But this is kind of what I see with Ethereum. I think it needs to hold. Both of these need to hold really, and that's the problem with going too high too fast. Is that now you have a new set of rules that you have to maintain, or otherwise we blow off top and we come back down. So anyway, Ethereum's still looking okay to me. Just needs to hold this structure. The market doesn't really look that bad despite the red day. I don't know why people are freaking out over one red day. I think this presents an opportunity to me more than anything. So anyway, let's go ahead and go to Solana. All right, let's go to Solana. So we're going to cover the weekly. This is currently the daily, but we'll look at adjust this for the weekly now. The theme for this for the Solana is probably a little bit untimely for right now, but it's actually the confusion like positive confusion and more so like there's too many things on the board. And so with relative, I put this on Solana because Solana is not just a thriving coin, it's had a lot of potential this year already and successfully, but also has a lot of growth with all of its tokens and things like that. Now, this is twofold. First of all, to talk about the negative, um, there's a lot of those meme coins going around, the Joe Biden and things like that, and to me that was a bearish sign, and that's probably one reason I didn't get involved with those because that I kind of seen that across the board. When you get bandwagon trades like that, that's never a good sign. It's a good sign that's telling you that the market's a little bit overcrowded and just to heed caution. Now, on the positive side, though, there are a lot of coins out there, and Solana is a very fruitful ecosystem to do that. It's easy to speculate on them. It's also lower fees to trade on. So that presents a lot of good opportunities. But that also presents what I'm talking about with the confusion, that positive confusion. Like there's too much at the buffet that you don't even know what to eat, and then so you end up starving kind of thing. And so you almost have this analysis paralysis kind of thing where it's just a little too speculative. You don't know what to do. And so that leads to it. And again, this is part of the the aspect of this confusion where Bitcoin is in a new paradigm as far as price action and price points. Solana has presented a new paradigm as far as its ecosystem growth. It's exploded as far as how good it's been with its growth, and so that's something that needs to be mindful of. That you don't have to speculate on all these coins that are probably going to go to zero anyway. That you can just maybe speculate on a few or whatever your strategy might be. And so that's pretty much the theme. And I put that for Solana because Solana is a good representation of that. Now, let's go ahead and go to the weekly on this. And so if you can forgive my chicken scratch because it is relevant to the 1 day. Had a good push uptrend for last week. We pushed above that zone at about 135. I did say yesterday that we would retest that. Possibly we did. But that also is looking good because this presents a new zone. So we want to look at this zone in the gray where the low is 135, the high is 174. We're still within that zone. There's nothing really weird that's going on here. I don't care if we have a red day. It's just kind of how it is, especially at the highs like this. As far as Aron goes, full bull trend. Bears are hibernating at the zero. We have a weekly divergence. This is significant. When we get a divergence where one of the ticks is above really high like this, it needs to be a concern. Now, the good news is that this doesn't validate until about 111. So the good news is if we break below 135, we can actually be ahead of that. And so 135 is going to be my deviation zone. And so if we hold this or if we come back below, I should say, this deviates and now I can think about lower targets or buying more or whatever might, you know, be your particular case for your strategy. Until then, we don't need to be concerned about it, but we do need to be mindful of it. And so that's kind of how that works with the weekly. Now, the daily is a little more important to me. So we had this push up. I thought that we'd get this push up above. We did. This was your retest zone from last week. Now we're kind of in a wedge formation. This is easier to see on the 4 hour. And so we're threatening to break down below this. If we break down below this on the 4 hour, we're probably going to go to 140 for sure, which isn't really saying much. But the 135 would be our next target. We want to hold this 135. Now, if we go back up to the daily, this is that zone. We rejected the mid, and so now we're working with this zone where the low is 135 and the high is 155. And so, again, nothing out of the ordinary. You don't need S&P 500. You don't need CPI telling you what to do, blah, 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 blah. And, CPI was 4 hours ago. Now, why is it affecting now versus 4 hours ago? See what I'm saying? Like you had 4 hours to respond. Now it's affecting it. Doesn't make sense to me. It only makes sense if you try to force it to make sense. And so, when you have this zone, you just need to play things level by level, and that's pretty much it. Aron full bull, you have this drop down consolidation. So this is that trend consolidation I was talking about. So it's still looking pretty good. No divergence on the 1 day, but there is on the 1 week. So just keep that in mind overall. I think Solana still looks good. It's probably the healthiest of the three. And that's not to say that Bitcoin's not healthy. I think all three are really healthy. Excuse me, but I think that Solana has probably the least likely drawdown potential because of its growth and where it's positioned in the markets and on the charts. So anyway, that's pretty much Solana. I think I'll cover Dogecoin together with this. So let's go to the Binance. And so we'll go on the weekly here. if this will load. And so we have this zone. I think I'm going to hold this, but I'm going to get rid of it on the weekly. So have some markers out where I plan to look at profits and things like that. Actually, you know what? Let me see if I can just go to a different one because I want to hold this. So let's go to KuCoin or Coinbase. And so this is what that looks like on the weekly. None of this past this price action is relevant anyway, so that's fine. Good bullish candle. We had a much previous one before. This one broke the weekly structure, broke the bullish breaker structure, looking pretty solid on that. And so this was your zone. You had that zone break. Pretty much had a retest as well, so that doesn't look too bad. Now it's one of these things where this could range back and forth. If you guys are in my premium group, you know that I had leverage options for Dogecoin. I have since migrated those to spot. I made a good amount of money on this move right here. I converted those to spot. Now the spots are not doing that great relative to the leverage, but that's completely fine because it's there to build up until we get to $1, which I think that we will. Now we have this zone here from the liquidity marker actually broke above that zone, so this is pretty good. So now we're past that zone, and we need to get out of this liquidity structure. So we need to break 18.3 on the weekly to get out of that, and then now we're in. That would make us go into the next zone, which would be this big zone right here, and so that would be significant. But we need to break that, that 18.3 that we are looking at. It is in the bear consolidation, so you can see how things are a little bit different. Whereas, like Ethereum, full trend consolidation, Bitcoin trend consolidation, right? And then if you go to Dogecoin, you're at a bear consolidation. It's a non-trending consolidation. And so that shows you, and I'd almost venture to guess that, well, you can't see it on the win, but what about Pepe? Why is my computer so slow right now? I guess it's, oh, there you go. So a bear consolidation with that. I'm not sure why my computer's going so slow right now. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm talking about. That's the difference. So that means we're probably going to have more of a retrace with these meme coins. That's kind of what I've been saying with these. I think that we're going to lend ourselves to more downward price action with meme coins, possibly even the market as a whole, and I think that's completely healthy. And so we'll see how that plays out. But this is kind of what I look like on the weekly. RSI is kind of curling here, nothing really significant, to be honest with you. And so let's go ahead and go to the 1 day chart. So now you have this zone. And this is the one thing that I mentioned on the Binance chart is that we had this range right here. And I mentioned this in Discord, honestly, for the most part. But we have this range, and until we break through this range, there's nothing. I'm not interested in buying or selling right here, per se. I would be okay to maybe buy at the lower end of this at like 15 and see where that goes. We do have, here's that bullish breaker right there that we could retest to. We could go down to 10 cents. I think that that's viable, especially since that could also correlate with the 50 RSI bounce if we get that. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at for Dogecoin. Again, a lot of the meme coins, I think, I won't spend too much time on this, but I think the meme coins are due for a big, massive cool down, bigger than you might think. A lot of people say, well, get used, be prepared for the 30% market drawdowns. Well, I don't think people realize that meme coins are probably going to go down 40, 50%. And so a lot of you guys are not prepared for that, or even ready to even hear that. And we are approaching a time. So when I keep going back to this, and I apologize. When I did at 16,000 and Solana at 19, it was not a crowded trade. It was a contrary trade. People hated you for even bringing that up. And now we're at the point where people are getting upset for you saying that we might be going down. And so now the market, again, that goes back to that market shift, that confusion that I was telling you about, that we might get a drop down. And the fact that people are thinking that we aren't is probably one reason that we might. Because and it's not because that we will, otherwise that would be contrary to what I'm telling you in this video. But it does seem to work in tandem to where that's that market psychology, that's that confusion. You are confused into thinking that we could never drop down again, just like a lot of people were confused 2.5 years ago that we would never go up again. See what I'm saying? The nothing has really shifted except for the psychology of how you approach this market. So anyway, Dogecoin down 9% almost today. We're still stuck within this range. We do have a bearish wedge right here. Could break into a bearish cross. I think that's significant on the daily. I would, as someone that uses Aroon, that's a big deal. When you cross bearish on the daily, that's a big deal. That's a good time to monitor, because if it goes bearish, if it goes bullish back on the daily, that's the perfect time to get in. When Aaron shows a bullish cross, it's a perfect time to get in on a market like this. And so we'll just see where that goes. RSI is looking just fine. Hidden bull, I think, but again, we still have this range play. That's the biggest thing for me. So anyway, that's the video. To summarize, in my summary, Bitcoin down a little bit. We have the divergence. Weekly structure looks good. Needs to hold that weekly structure. However, otherwise we might be considering to deviate here. We definitely need to hold 68,000, but we especially need to hold 60,000. At the level. If we go down to 59, I think we're in danger of even going further down to like 45. And those are not necessarily targets I want to share, but those are just options that we shared in this video. Ethereum, very similar structure. We have you don't want to deviate below this 4,000. We're already in danger of doing that. We have this bullish channel. You don't want this to break, but it is in danger of breaking currently. Solana looks the best of the three. It does have a rising wedge that is breaking down to the downside, so we need to watch out for that. If it can hold, then we're looking okay with that. If not, we're going back down to 135. And then Dogecoin, as I just mentioned, is within a range. We need to play the break of that range. And so you have that to look forward to. So overall, it is a red day. It's not an unexpected day by any means. It's just kind of how it is. I think I think we are overextended, but I think chops relative to that overextension help keep us healthy in an overextension, if that makes sense. But overall, I don't want you to be confused on the markets. The markets are already confusing as they are. Don't make this harder on you than it should be. So anyway, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions at all. Look for the links in the description for Knowhere Premium, for the Apex indicator, and for my Discord channel. And I think that's pretty much it. Let me know. Happy to answer any questions, comments. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you see fit. See you next time.